call this meeting of the Cleveland Heights University Heights City School District Board of Education to order. Mr. Gaynor.
Mr. Coble. Ms. Pepler.
Here.
Mr. Register.
Here.
Mr. Silverman.
Here.
Mr. Zucker.
Here.
I just want to make mention that Mr. Coble is actually in Alaska and regrets that he's not able to join us this evening. So moving on, we have just a couple of a couple of items of business this evening before we go into the work session, which is the primary part of our agenda. First, we have personnel. I'd like a motion to approve items B1 through 7.
So moved. Second.
Any questions, comments, clarifications? Mr. Gaynor?
Ms. Pepler.
Yes.
Mr. Register.
Yes.
Mr. Silverman.
Yes.
Mr. Zucker.
Yes.
And, do you want to say something?
Yes, good evening. I would like Mr. Lombardo to come up and would like to introduce the community to a new employee.
All right. Good evening, everyone. It's a pleasure for me to introduce Jesse Lang as our new vocal music director and teacher. He has, for 6 years, been at Cuyahoga Falls High School. During his tenure, he adopted the course of study to include 4 curriculum choirs, 3 extracurricular choirs, a voice class, and an opera and musical theater performance course. Under his direction, the choirs have consistently earned superior and excellent ratings at OMEA district and state large group adjudicated events. The students have consistently earned superior and excellent rating at OMEA solo and ensemble adjudicated events and show choirs and pop. A cappella choir group has performed and hosted festivals, competitions, community performance. He has directed 6 successful productions of musicals in the role of drama director, vocal director, and pit orchestra director. Overall, facilitated the successful retention of recruitment of vocal music students in an outstanding program. And I know he's coming to another outstanding program, and we're very excited to introduce Jesse Lang to our new family, or to our family.
Thank you. And thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for that warm welcome. It's very exciting to be moving forward with you and with the community. I really look forward to the opportunities here in Cleveland Heights University Heights, and I really am just chomping at the bit to get in the classroom and get teaching. Although the summer spent with my 4-year-old daughter right now has been really kind of special too. We just went to the Columbus Zoo last weekend. It was awesome. But I do have to say I could not be more excited, and I do very much appreciate the vote of confidence and all of the opportunities and the smiling faces and the support that I've already received. And I look forward to giving my all to this community, and just can't wait to get started. So thank you very much, and hope to see you all at the choir concerts this coming year.
Thank you. I can say that your enthusiasm really showed in your interview process. The kids were talking about it. I heard about it from my kids, so that's good to hear. Okay, we're moving on to finance. Can we take items C1 and 2 together? Could I have a motion, please?
So moved. Second.
Any comments, Mr. Gaynor?
Just that we have 2 end-of-year items that you don't typically have, other than your monthly financial statement. We have transfers and advances for closing out the end of the fiscal year, because no fund can end in a negative. So we have those transactions here laid out for you so that the auditors can see your approval of that. And then we also have temporary appropriations for the next school year. And this is slightly different than what we typically do. We usually do 25% of the previous year's appropriations, and that's how we start the year off. We actually just did an estimate of a full year's appropriations to start the fiscal year off. The auditors preferred to see that, so that's the way we did it. But the process will still be the same. We will come to you in September with a permanent appropriation and budget that we'll ask you to approve, and we'll adjust these numbers accordingly. So that's what we have for you tonight.
Any questions, gentlemen?
But Scott, now,
that's the kind of thing where if we compared year to year, someone could say, oh, well, you increased it 400%, but in reality, it's just a matter of how you're doing the accounting.
Correct.
Thank you. Okay.
All right, Mr. Gaynor?
Ms. Pepler?
Yes.
Mr. Register?
Yes.
Mr. Silverman?
Yes.
Mr. Zucker?
Yes.
And Dr. Dixon, would you like to kick us off with the work session?
Okay, so we have with us tonight Pat O'Brien. Are you going to start?
Well, we have Laura Steinbrink from HLMS Sustainability Solutions is going to give us a presentation on how we have done with respect to sustainability on the new high school project and how that compares to where we anticipated we would be when we started this quite a while back. So I'm going to hand it off to Laura.
Can you maybe get the lights for when, if she's using the PowerPoint for the audience? Great, thank you.
So I can see you.
Yes, I can see you. Great.
Here we go.
So, good evening, and thank you very much for having me tonight. As you may know, so my firm works collaboratively with PMC, and we came in just over a year ago and helped facilitate an eco-charrette in this very room with a diverse group of individuals from the administration, the school body, the teaching staff, the community, the architecture, engineering, and construction team. And the first thing that we started off with when we were there a year ago, and what I think is really important to ground this conversation in tonight, is that when we come together to talk about sustainability in construction, what's most important is to understand what this building is being built for. And it's for the kids, right? And it's about the legacy that the decisions made are going to create for this generation of students in that school and the generations to come, because we know that the public investment in schools lasts for decades. I mean, who would have imagined that even the school as it is, all of the iterations of life it has gone through the current building, and some of that's going to be preserved. So by the time in the future when we could even imagine having another conversation like this again, that original historic structure will be even that much older. So the kids being the center focus of the conversation. What I'm going to do in this presentation is talk through really four main topics. The first is an overview of sustainability to ground us with where we were when we started this initiative at the Eco-Charrette last year, to talk about decision-making criteria and how it's influenced by sustainability, go goal by goal through the 5 goals that were identified by the collective group at the Eco-Charrette, and then conclude with an update on the LEED certification process. So starting off just to again ground us with what we had talked about at the Eco-Charrette, and everybody in that room went around and gave a definition of sustainability and what it meant to them. And over, and this specific definition comes from the World Commission on Environment and Economics and Development, but it's really about the decision-making about resources in a way that does not compromise the future generations' abilities to live life the way they should, because we made decisions that took away resources today. So it's really a forward-looking approach to how you make decisions. Another really important piece of this framework is how you create balance between multiple elements of the decision-making process. In sustainability, we call it often the triple bottom line, and that's finding the parity between decisions that are really about people. So for a school, it's about what the teachers need to be at their best when they teach, and it's about what the students need to be at their best as they learn. From a planetary standpoint, it's how are we using resources and energy in a way that preserves those natural resources for the future. And in a school setting, the P, profit, really is talking about the financial sustainability of the district and of the decisions that are being made for that project. One of the key ways that you achieve sustainable decision-making and parity and balance with the triple bottom line is through an integrated design process. And that is certainly something that has gone on here in Cleveland Heights in a way that is much more dynamic and really, integrated than I see in many other projects that we work on. That is where you have active engagement and collaboration between the architects, engineers, and construction team. Your design-build methodology really does help facilitate that. The administration and the community, by the way you've engaged volunteers on a number of levels of decision-making, not just around sustainability, but you've really reached out and said, help us do this. You've gotten student involvement and you've got teacher involvement. And all of that was present with us when we had the Eco Charrette a year ago. One of the other key elements that we talked about at the Eco Charrette repeatedly, and will show up as we go through the goals that were identified and the strategies to meet them, is the whole concept that some of these decisions that are made through the design and construction of a building have to do with that specific, the design and construction. And other decisions that are made or ideas that come forward are really behavior-based. And it's about how intentional the district is in leveraging the systems and the design of that building to help shape culture and to shape behavior in that building going forward. So on this screen, you see the phantom plug load. Ooh, I'm bad. Because what I'm saying is that if I have a building that's fully developed and systemed out so that you have all of the technology and sensors and controls that you want, if the people inside that building don't follow along with the practices and the principles, the next thing you know is that you potentially have a challenge. So this 245 count is the current count of small appliances that are plugged in on a day-to-day basis inside the high school. So you can see that while people take some initiative to make the room the way they want it or their space the way that's conducive to them, there's an opportunity for conversation that says, what do we really need and how are we going to operate inside this building? So this is really just presented for illustration. And the key reason we launch off that whole notion around behavior is because we have a whole opportunity to really understand where the cost structure comes from a building. Traditionally, it's thought that those first cost decisions, that budget that you have for the building, is where we need to put all of the focus. In a sustainable project, teams hold a hard line to fully understand the operational impact of first cost design decisions. The research shows that over the life cycle of a building, 74% of its total cost will be in that operation. And this team certainly did that, and you'll see that reflected in the process. So then we get to the notion about decision-making and decision-making criteria. When we were at the Eco Charrette, we spent time collectively talking about the importance of making rational decisions, being clear about what the design problem, the issue is, the concept that we're debating. For example, are we going to have asphalt or concrete? Are we going to have a white roof or a black roof? What are we going to do and how does it matter? Then we define criteria that are relative to that specific design issue, and we evaluate multiple options to determine what the right course of action is going forward. For Cleveland Heights and University Heights in this project, it is clear that there were multiple factors that often were often considered in these design decisions. It was never just one way. It wasn't a one-way train around first cost, and it wasn't a one-way train around historic preservation. It was a multifaceted conversation that was about safety and security, functional nature of this building, the aesthetic look of pleasing, interior, exterior, preserving those historic pieces that can be preserved, making sure the space is productive and accessible. Certainly looking at first cost, absolutely, there's a budget to be balanced and to be maintained, and very significant consideration of operational impacts, both on the continuing cost to maintain the building and the different design elements that were in there, as well as the cost for the energy that's required to run the building. And sustainability at a forefront of being able to overlay over multiple design decisions certainly influenced and held to the table and held at the forefront, again, back to that integrated design, because of the significant influence that your volunteers from the Sustainable Working Group were able to bring from their information and their resources that allowed multiple decisions to have a deeper reflection that really produced a well thought out response in how it was going to play for the district and be the right design decision. So when we think about what happened at the Eco Charrette, and when I'm about to go into the goals, I think it's important to understand the process that we went through. So we were together for the majority of a day, and it was a very collaborative brainstorm-like session. And a charrette is a French word for, idea-generating design session. The architects love to use it, and we throw eco at the beginning to say that this is really focused on sustainability. Everybody in the room was given multiple sticky notes, and you see examples. These are yours from Cleveland Heights that came out. People, whenever they had an idea of a goal, of a strategy, a tactic to meet that strategy, or a metric that would be important to measure and monitor, they filled out a sticky note, and then you see in the lower picture the white pages all around the room. So we went through a process of talking about sustainability, defining it as a group, getting everybody's ideas on the table, what we were talking about the history of sustainability in Cleveland Heights and University Heights and how core it is to these communities. Then identifying top-level goals around energy, around water, around material use, around construction practices, around the building as a teaching tool. And we organized the thoughts collectively from everyone in the room. People would say, here's my idea, and we would talk about it, and then they would place them up on the boards. And then what we did afterwards was put it all together and, organize it underneath the 5 main goals and produce a report back. So I say this to indicate that this was an open process. There was discussion, there was debate, but at the end of the day, everybody's ideas were captured and then reflected back into the report. So the 5 goals that emerged from the Eco Charrette are summarized as build a net zero ready building, build for 100% on-site stormwater management, achieve zero waste in construction and operation, and design and operate a building for human health, and design and operating a building to be a teaching tool. When we take the first goal, what we talked about is to understand sort of where we came from and where we're going. So the building as it operates today is estimated to consume approximately 150 to 200 kBTUs. And when you consider where that ranks against the 51,500 schools that the United States EPA has registered and reviewed in its Energy Star program, it falls in the bottom 10% of K through 12 schools in the nation. The way the current design is configured, the analysis ultimately will not be complete until the design is complete, but the early indications show that it will be in the 35 to 40 kBTU range, which places it in the top 5% of schools in the United States. And I think that point, to dive a little deeper into what top 5% means, is really important to understand contextually where Cleveland Heights High School will fall. Starting at the top, 354,000 square feet from this massive building that houses over 2,000 computers and a full industrial kitchen and a pool, compared to the top 5% schools in the United States that have an average of 23,000 square feet, 1 computer per 1,000 square feet, no walk-in freezers and coolers, and very few instances of a pool. Now, the bottom 2 bullet points in each of these are technical commentary around how much cooling and how much heating, and degree days is an engineering term. Ultimately, you see the higher number, that means more energy that is required to heat and cool, more days, more hours, more degree differential from the standard that is required in order to keep the building at a reasonable level. So Cleveland Heights High School performing in the top 5% compared to the national average, you can see that the performance of this building will be exceptional from an energy standpoint. So if we dive deeper into the strategies, all of the strategies that were brought forward from the Eco Charrette for the Build a Net Zero Ready building, the next 3 concepts, we had originally talked about the KBTUs. The next three concepts of, focusing on the exposure of outside walls leads the architecture team to design a building that's more rectangular in nature and doesn't have so many sides. Building for solar-ready design, absolutely achieved in the way the design comes forward to you today. And consistently reduce carbon footprint means you're going to put systems monitors in place that allow you to fully understand what the energy consumption is of the building so that you can set goals going forward to continually lower the energy consumption and reduce that carbon footprint. All of those elements have been incorporated into your design, and the tools are there for continuous monitoring and activity. So the next two indicate community lead from a status perspective. Become an energy producer and leverage off-site renewable energy systems. Absolutely considerable goals, especially for a community that embraces sustainability as strongly as this does, and arguably something that the community should be bringing to the district to put into play, not necessarily something that fits within a publicly funded project that the district is going to take leadership on itself. Those two items we indicated are something that the community, if they're interested in, could bring forward, and to date, it doesn't appear that has happened. So manage and measure energy consumption, again, speaks in a way to reducing carbon footprint. What are the tools and resources that you have inside the design of this building that's going to allow you to do that going forward? And there's a fully automated building management system that will allow the tracking and the control of lights and heating and cooling and carbon dioxide sensors and plug load controls and all of those things that are going to give you both data so that you know how the building's operating and the controls in order to take charge of the building as it's in operation. So from a standpoint of building a net zero ready building, what that says is this building in a position and is this site designed in a way to allow us to achieve net zero based on the way it's designed? And the answer is yes, it's there. I mean, at the end of the day, you could have a net zero ready building with the building you have here. The question is, how many square feet of space do you need to have renewable energy to offset that? And you might have to take up 3 city blocks, right, with 150 BTUs per square foot. You're within a range that's achievable based on the current design. So we move on to the next goal from the report, which is about on-site stormwater management. This we get a yellow light. So the site itself, the area that's within the lead boundary, which is one of the determinations that we need for the certification, a baseline has been set for the anticipated stormwater runoff, which was absolutely something that's important to understand where you are going forward. Prevent stormwater runoff is something that's going to be achieved in part through bioswales in the landscape design. Approximately 5% of the runoff will be treated on site with the bioswales. Now, the building itself has a 15% reduction in its overall square footage of the footprint, and the hardscape building footprint plus the hardscape design is going to bring an overall 8% reduction in this. So the hardscape reduction plus the bioswales leads to a net 13% diversion of the stormwater on site from of runoff. So reusing stormwater was an idea and a strategy that came forward from the EcoShred, and certainly something that would be critically important if we were in a condition where the cost of water was so high to justify. What the design team has come to at this point in time is including it as an alternate for on-site irrigation should the decision be made to pursue that. However, further consideration needs to be given to the cost of providing irrigation when there's none on the site today and isn't necessarily needed. And the second is the ongoing energy and resources, material resources that would be needed to pipe and then to pump that aren't in consideration today. So there's often trade-offs that you find in sustainability discussions. Is it more important to reuse that stormwater for the sake of reusing it, or are we going to take into consideration the potential impact that it would have to do that? It's still listed as an alternate for on-site irrigation. You'll see the bottom strategy here is in italics for a reason. It didn't come up in the eco charrette that we should focus on reducing potable water consumption inside the building. However, it is something that the design team implemented. And I build on that off the stormwater piece because we all know, especially today, if anybody got the alert, that sewage was released into Lake Erie because we've had so much rain. The stormwater sewers can't handle the sewage sewers and they cross during rain events and then you get sewage into the lake. So you want to reduce potable water consumption, perhaps not because we have a water shortage, but because we have a stormwater issue in Northeast Ohio. 45% reduction this building will achieve over code because of the choice of fixtures, flushing devices, fittings on the sinks. So a 45% reduction in potable water consumption translates to a 45% reduction in wastewater that this project will achieve, and we felt that that was important to mention from a performance standpoint. Achieving zero waste in construction and operation is something that is handled through practice and then demonstrated through the construction process. So we haven't built the building yet. The performance of this will be further, will be realized through the construction. But the team has a construction waste management plan in place, which is calling for the goal of significant goals of diversion at approximately 95% of total construction waste or higher. There is a plan in place to reuse and divert that demolition material that can be either on-site or off-site. And the team has already addressed how they're going to work on that. So when we talk about diverting construction waste, we're talking about diverting those things that otherwise could be, meaning we're not going to landfill things that shouldn't be landfilled. We can't divert hazardous waste, and there will be some waste that comes out of this building that is hazardous because of the asbestos remediation. So we have to accept that as just fact for safety reasons. Eliminating food waste is something that's an operational opportunity for the district and for the building. And that conversation is being pursued right now through the contract negotiations with new caterers. So it's a topic that's in progress. There's recently a waste audit conducted at all of the buildings that that the district completed and is working with the Cuyahoga County Solid Waste District to understand really what was in the waste stream and what are strategies that we can do to operationalize that going forward. So absolutely the district has picked up the baton on both of these two topics and is moving them forward. When we consider the opportunity to design and operate the building for human health, it takes a moment to really reflect on how we want to have this building, the interior air quality of that building. What are the materials that are being used during construction, and how does the building operate to produce the right climate inside for learning? So starting at the top, though, the first notion that came out was let's have a building that really encourages biking, and let's have a community that understands the importance of physical fitness and of alternative transportation. So the building is being designed with an abundance of bike racks and a, whoa, that's interesting. Hold on, excuse me. Right. Abundance of bike racks and a commercial grade pump that will allow folks to fill their tires, as well as a few covered bike parking spaces. The building has showers inside for both the students, and then the separate showering facilities for the coaches, which can be used by educators. So both the teachers and administration and the students will be able to take advantage of the facilities provided for biking. From a maintain healthy and clean building, the district has already implemented a green cleaning program throughout the district at all of the buildings, which ensures that the equipment used and the they're not chemicals, the
Products.
Products, thank you. Products used to clean the building are sustainable and healthy. So that's already been implemented across the district and will continue going forward. And then when we talk about ensuring healthy indoor air quality, there's two pieces to that puzzle. One is having to do with construction, and the construction team is going to be implementing an indoor air quality plan during construction, which will make sure that the particulates and the cleanliness of the job site and the way materials are scheduled and brought in and handled will make sure that they're preserved, and that the amount of debris from construction that gets into the filters and the air systems is clean, right? And then it's the materials and the adhesives and the sealants and the paints and the coatings and all of the construction, the fixtures and finishes and the construction materials will all be low VOC. And they will track that and demonstrate that during process. So the plan is in place to deal with that. From a system standpoint, there are CO2 monitors that are built into the system, which will ensure that the appropriate amount of outdoor air is brought in. Commercial grade buildings of this nature already have a very significant amount of outdoor air that's naturally brought in through the system. And they will have humidity controls and all of that to allow the building to be maintained at the right levels. Another piece to this puzzle that is very apparent is that the district has come to understand and is actively working towards that culture building and that behavioral piece. We talked about it a little bit in the beginning. But ensuring healthy indoor air quality is one of the opportunities for education and constant communication with the people who are in the building on a day-to-day basis, the students and the teachers and the administrators, to make sure that doors are closed when doors need to be closed and windows that are operable are used at the best conditions possible, and then therefore closed when it's not the best condition. And that's part of a responsibility for any sustainable building or any building that you're trying to operate in a sustainable way, is that it's a partnership between the systems and the design of the building and the people who work within them. So then we move on to design and operating the building to be a teaching tool. Very, very critical element, which is to leverage the building technology for learning. So building as a teaching tool, oh, there we go again. Building as a teaching tool is something that will be facilitated in the next 2-year process, and absolutely an opportunity for continued community involvement and engagement with the staff. A curriculum will need to be developed to meet the LEED certification requirements that documents aggressive goals and time commitment for every student in that building to have touched sustainability and to understand the technology. The conversations that can get started today is a deeper understanding of what this building automation system can produce by way of data of how much energy is being used by what system, when, how, and where, how those sensors work, what are they, the CO2 sensors, the humidity sensors, what are they showing, how much water is being pulled from where within the building, so that you can dashboard that. The building is going to have an electronic dashboard as well as a robust signage program and opportunities, to log in and see dashboards online at individual computer stations. So that the pieces and parts to do that are in place. So now the opportunity is to continue that conversation and really refine how it's going to be used going forward. From an incorporate construction practices into the educational plan, the construction team has educational modules where students will be invited to come learn more about construction process, both in a classroom setting as well as on site. And so as the building starts its construction, those will be implemented. And then finally, enhance the building culture to support sustainability. We touched about this briefly, using the examples of the control systems and what's in place. I believe that the process of developing the building as a teaching tool will naturally create opportunities to understand where additional education is in place and where you can really needed for the students and the faculty to understand how to use the building correctly and to really set that culture up. Implementing the operational goals around green cleaning and talking about that now, and then discussing among everybody the waste stream audit and setting preliminary goals to get you towards a lower waste output by the time the building opens, are all things that are going to be that can be in progress today, that are in progress, that will enhance that building culture going forward. So this is a long way to say a lot of decisions have been made to this point in time that have defined the design of the building, and now you're ready for construction. And it's a great building. I mean, you have it's going to be a high-performing, energy-efficient building, and it has what you need it to do from a programming standpoint. And the opportunity exists to continue discussing the operational aspects of the building and the culture going forward. So if we talk about LEED and where we are with the LEED certification process, as you may recall, it was a commitment to build to LEED Silver standards. LEED is an independent third-party rating system made by the U.S. Green Building Council, and it has a very rigorous third-party review of construction documents and design documents, energy models and the like that demonstrate whether or not the prerequisites, which all projects that seek LEED certification have to meet, have been met, and what optional credit points have been met through the documentation process. So as part of the Eco-Charrette, once all the goals and strategies and tactics were revealed, the architecture and engineering and construction team came together and said, okay, well, we understand where the collective integrated design body said we need to go. We understand what some of the decision-making criteria are that we're going to be focused on. What do we think is reasonable and what can we achieve? And over the course of the year, as those design decisions have been made, they have moved things that were questionable whether or not they could achieve them into the yes column or into the no column, or have left them where they are, perhaps because it's a performance-based, construction-related issue. But as you're tracking right now, nearing the point in time where the project will submit for its design phase review, you're showing a solid 67 points in the yes column, and 60 are required for gold. So 50 were for silver, 60 is for gold, and you're tracking very strongly 67 in the yes column. That process will continue, and you ultimately won't receive the certification until sometime 6 months to 9 months after the construction process is over, after all the documents have been submitted and reviewed. But you're tracking in the right place to where your intentions were. So when I was brought in to come and give the review and understand really where this project is, and to think about what's happening, it seems to me that so much time and effort has been spent on something that all of the people, from the board, from the administration, from the architecture, engineering, construction team, the sustainable working group, have been hard at work with something that everybody who's in the room sees it, but the community doesn't, right? Because it's behind the scenes work. And very soon you're going to start construction, and a building's going to come down and a new one's going to come out of the ground. So what a great time to tell a story and to really help the community understand what's been going on and what's coming going forward. So the idea of this video came out, and we worked collaboratively with Angie and her team to tell a story that we want to share with you right now, so in conclusion, of where this project is from a sustainability standpoint, and hopefully to inspire additional work towards this goal.
Sustainability is living in an earth-friendly way. So maybe you don't need all the material things that you could buy at the store. It's more about using your resources, your natural resources and energy around you.
Sustainability is important because it keeps the earth healthy and your environment healthy.
It can be used for animals, plants, or humans.
Really, it's living in harmony with the earth in a way that makes sense so we can continue living.
I think of the possibility of having solar at the school and a dashboard that would go with the solar, a dashboard that would bring that information to the classroom. I think that students and teachers could use that information in their classrooms as basis for data. I think that the building being used as a basis for the lessons would make learning real. Instead of studying mythical circles and mythical equations, if they're based on reality, it makes sense that kids would wake up and say, okay, this is really what we're studying. It's right here, tangible in their hands and in their minds.
I think that as the high school goes forward, we can think about, well, how can we use the building as a teaching tool? Even if it's not everything we wanted it to be, what can we learn from it? Sometimes the things that are sustainable cost more upfront, but they provide long-term savings, and we think that that really needs to be valued and that needs to be a priority.
This is a legacy building project. It's a project that's going to shape public opinions about the Heights in a really positive way. It's going to show that we're committed to education, and I think the donors are going to respond to the opportunity to be a part of that, to leave a legacy and leave their mark on the Heights.
Some of the stuff we're doing here is with our garden, our composting program. We're going to have a 30 by 60 foot hoop house, which will be enormous, where we can grow food, hopefully eat that food, and really start talking about healthy living and doing it ourselves, not wasting things.
One of my favorite things that we're going to make is the pizza oven, because we don't have to use like stoves and use up all our electricity and have a high bill.
Like last year we made carrots, so this year it was ready and we pulled them out.
Did you eat them?
No.
When we make a tree house, that the tree house will have sun tubes, and so the light can actually shine in instead of using light bulbs and energy and batteries and chargers.
This city was built around neighborhood schools, and it was built to be bikeable and walkable. And we've gotten away from that because of reliance on cars, and it's had a lot of negative effects on people's health and the community well-being. The biggest problem, apparently, I mean, diet is a part of our problem with health, but in addition, people just don't get enough exercise, and that's equally important. So encouraging children from an early age to become walkers and bicyclists is going to pay long-term benefits, is my hope.
The current building, the indoor air quality, which is temperature, humidity, and dust, dirt, and whatever in the air, is atrocious. If you teach in the building, and I do some volunteer teaching there, there are times, even in the wintertime, when a room will be above 80 degrees. The air will be dry, below normal human comfort, be down in the 10-20% instead of in the 50% range relative humidity. Dust particulates can't help but be coming off the walls. And we don't really have a measure of that because we don't monitor that. The new building should have stringent controls on that air quality. There'll be filtration, there'll be humidity control, there'll be temperature control. The Sustainable Work Group and the work they've done with the facilities is amazing. I think our building will be stronger because of their work. And I think that's an example of community members stepping up and saying, we want to help. And I just hope that will continue, that the district will continue to embrace help from the community, and the community will continue lending their hand to the district.
I'm really proud and excited to know that we're working toward Cleveland Heights High School being in the top 5% nationwide for schools in terms of energy efficiency. And that delivers on the promise that we made to the community in passage of Issue 81, that we would have sustainability as a core value.
So that concludes the presentation. Happy to take questions.
Thank you. You want to turn the light back on for us, Laura? Thank you. All right, gentlemen, for those of you who haven't been to one of our facilities-focused work groups in the past, I think most of you have, but the board will ask questions and talk, but then, unlike most work sessions, we will take comments from the community because we've committed to that as part of these facilities work sessions. So who has a comment or a question?
Go ahead.
You?
Just go ahead, please.
I'm waiting for Cal.
Okay,
I got
Cal.
nothing.
I got nothing right now. I want to
Okay.
give you a chance first.
Go ahead.
The only thing, I was going to tell, I emailed Strigalis, but and he's not here. The thing the item that stands out for myself is the where we currently rank on our energy efficiency being way at the bottom, and then with the current design being in the top 5%, and then considering the other schools that are in that, we're very dissimilar from their size, their amenities, what have you. So to me, that's what's impressive. Forget everything else we're talking about. That alone, I think, is testament to the design and what the design team's been doing, the sustainability, everybody putting together. That to me is a standout. I mean, everything else to me is almost icing on the cake for that. The one thing I also was interesting, I think, is in regard to the design alternate of basically a cistern to use for irrigation, is I think that they were saying that because we don't currently irrigate, if we were to collect the water and use it, it may actually cost us a point or two on lead. Even doing the right thing as far as reusing the water actually theoretically could be a detriment on our scores. Because the energy, because we don't do it now, we'd be adding it, and then
Because of the energy
and
usage?
then the energy as well. So I mean, that was.
Well, LEED certification aside, it's just a question to ask. If you're not using those resources today, the field doesn't need irrigated, does it need irrigated?
But just to, if I could jump off that a little bit, Eric, I think that one clarification, and Laura, I think you did a great job on your presentation. You covered a lot of materials, but I think one thing to clarify, because I remember hearing this in conversations earlier, either in these meetings or with the sustainability working group, is that idea of stormwater reuse wasn't just about irrigation of the fields. There was a desire for us to explore the reuse of stormwater for our use within the building also. Could you say something about that? Because I think I know that that's something that we explored.
Right. So sure, irrigation is one potential reuse of stormwater. The other is for flushing toilets. The fixtures that have been selected, as I said, are extremely water efficient, such that the collective group of fixtures and flushing devices is going to generate a 45% savings over code in the anticipated water consumption. In order to use stormwater, you have to double pipe. So to double pipe to certain parts of the building or the whole building, if you were going to implement a system, would be arguably cost prohibitive. And it would add resources to the equation that, you have to do a life cycle analysis of what does it take to do it and carry it forward. So these flushing devices, using 45% less water, will produce 45% less stormwater. So you're even when you go into that wastewater, when you go into that conversation, the amount of water that you need is even smaller than, so that cost per inch of pipe goes that much higher.
Thank you.
One of the things I think in regards to, I know the design team was working on, if we don't necessarily have to make a decision at this point in the process on if we wanted to have the cistern to collect the water, so long as we have the pipe and infrastructure already in there. Theoretically, then, later in the design process, a year from now, 5 years from now, if we wanted to do that, we could locate the spot. We already have we don't have to tear up the parking lot because we already have the piping and the equipment, which is, again, I think, which is testament to the design team looking proactively, looking 5-10 years out to give us that flexibility that right now, whenever we want to change something, it it hasn't been, our alterations in the past haven't had the best outcomes, but by designing the structure to allow us to do it in the future, I've been very happy with that.
I'm good.
So the one thing I guess I was going to say, I just want to sort of have to digest it for a minute. Nice job on the presentation. The one slide you showed, and you don't have to go back to it, but there's, I guess I'd call it like the cake and eat it too slide, which has all the different competing interests on it. And I guess the one thing that I really like the way the outcomes came out, because I think sustainability needs to be taken in a broader context than just what people think of in this room tonight, which is, for lack of a better term, eco-sustainability. But we have to look at this district has to be sustainable, eco-sustainable, it has to be fiscally sustainable, it has to be programmatically sustainable, it has to be functionally sustainable. And that's why I'm really glad that one of the circles on the cake and eat it too slide was functionality, because I think in the end, that is our reason for being. That's why we're here. So I think that the notion that there have to be compromises along the way, I think the outcomes you showed tonight in terms of the eco-sustainability really are outstanding, given the competing interests to be overall sustainable as an organization. So yes, it's a nice job that was done.
I think the thing that I would agree with everything that you said, Cal. I think the thing that concerns me the most going forward, and concerns is probably or possibly a little bit of an overstatement, but the thing I believe that as a district and the superintendent needs to focus on over the next 2 years heavily is on those behavioral changes amongst all of the people in that building, the staff, the students. That can start at Wiley, at Heights High out on the Wiley campus, whatever we're calling it, sorry, but that can start there. But those behavioral changes make all the difference in the world, I think, for us kind of just as a community and as what we're teaching our kids going forward, not just the building as a teaching tool, which I think obviously needs a lot of focus over the next 2 years, but the behavioral changes for students and for staff. And I honestly think it's probably more difficult on the staff side just because we're older, but those are going to be more difficult than the design elements and the delivery of the design plans.
I agree with you, and I think that the students oftentimes can be the best drivers for those changes, as you
We have a great
implied.
Leadership group for that.
As you
Yeah.
implied. But I think one of the things, and this is on a different slide, where you talked about the competition of how do you judge? Because, so for instance, you mentioned small refrigerators. Well, are those small refrigerators for people who are just keeping their yogurt in, or is it for a science classroom that may need a small refrigerator to refrigerate specimens or something? So you can't look at these things in a vacuum. And I think I'm really glad to see that people are taking a broader look, and I think the students would be especially good at that type of thing.
Other comments, questions? Okay, so I don't believe we took any sign-ups for the comments from the community. We're doing this at this point, right?
Yeah, I don't know.
Are we doing the comments at this point or after the other part of the presentation?
Are you doing a presentation, Pat?
I was not.
Okay. So let's do it. Raise your hand if you'd like to come forward, or you guys know the drill. Come on forward, say your name. You don't have to do your address, unlike at City Council. Say your name and make a few comments. If we can answer any questions tonight briefly, we will. Otherwise, you also know the drill. We'll get answers out to the community.
Alan Wilkinson. Struggling because, I know Laura and I respect Laura, but the presentation was extremely qualitative. So checkboxes it goes with the LEED standard. It's very much a checkbox kind of measurement. There is something called LEED performance that actually measures numbers. When you get to numbers and you look at the net zero ready point, the 5%, being in the 5% group for the building, you're measured against a huge amount of aged building stock across the country. And so 5% is not a remarkable place. 35 to 40 kb2s per square foot per year is a typical building, although it does assume full geothermal. You will not get that number based on the schematic design numbers of last September. You will not get that number if you're not full geothermal. And full geothermal is an alternate, not a definite at this point. So keep in mind, net zero ready, if you're going to be really net zero ready and you look at the photovoltaics on the roof as your energy source, because you're not going to have a wind generator. I don't think Cleveland Heights is going to give you a wind generator. But if you put solar panels on the roof, you're not going to be able to support more than 15 to 18,000 BTUs per square foot per year. That's net zero ready. We're not there. We can't get there by anything we've got in our design features right now. And if you're going to get to the 35 to 40, you've got to be full geothermal. So I don't see us net zero ready. So that's that part. And then the other part is in the water. To realize the water, just the roof water, not talking about the field water, any water collected off from impervious surfaces, is like 4 million gallons a year. Okay, that's about 4 times what. Actually, I think it might be more than 4 million, because it's roughly 4 times what you need to flush all your toilets in the building, based on an engineering report last August at Karpinski. So you've got a huge value in the water that you're getting just off the roof of the building, and that water, can save you in buying domestic water. And over 50 years, that water is going to get pretty darn expensive. And we're already seeing Cleveland Heights is talking about jacking up their water rates by a factor of 3. So you're going to see some rate increases that are going to make water expensive. And at this point, as we understood at a board meeting a month ago, that you do irrigation already on the athletic fields on the east side. And I thought I heard Laura say tonight that you don't do them. But that was at a board meeting. Steve asked George Petcack in the back of the room, and he said you were irrigating in the no?
No.
That's what I remember board meeting ago.
No.
Okay. I'll be corrected then, but that was my understanding from that board meeting. But we've got there's a lot of water that could be put to use, and water is going to be a precious commodity. And I don't know if you guys have heard the statement, but water is seen to be the biggest cause of war in this century. That's expected to be the biggest cause of war in this century. And so we could do our part about that. So again, we're not net zero ready. Our 100% stormwater, it was not a quantitative representation. We're not even close to using 100%. We may put it in basins and let it go down the storm sewers after it's filled the basins, the bioretention basins, but it's not, we're not using that in any meaningful way. We're just putting it there and then letting it go down the storm sewer afterwards.
Thank you. Laura, can you address the one specific comment that, and if you can't, that's okay, we'll get back to it, but the one specific comment that Alan made about that it's not possible to be net zero ready without geothermal?
So
full geothermal, which is an alternate.
I'll make my comment, and then I'm looking to Evan to speak up. But there is the concept of net zero ready says that your building is designed in a way that you can offset its energy consumption with renewable energy sources on site. It doesn't mean you're limited to the size of the roof. So first as a foremost, you don't have to put the solar on the roof to be net zero ready. So the whole footprint of the site becomes your playground for the renewable energy that you might do one day. The building is solar ready for its roof to take in whatever it wanted to. And at the end of the day, the way you achieve net zero is to provide the renewable energy source that offsets the consumption that you have. So over time, for example, if you were to add on to the building 20 years from now, you'd have to, and you were net zero ready before you did that, you'd have to then offset that additional use too. So it's something that fluctuates, and so there's not one hard number that you have to be at. Would you add
Evan,
anything?
if you have something to add, if you could come up to the mic, if you have something to add. If you don't, it's okay too.
Well, I won't. My name's Evan Hammersmith. I'm the lead design mechanical engineer for the project. I can't speak a lot to the bioswales because that's the civil engineer that's responsible for that. But I will speak to geothermal system and the hybrid system that we're currently moving forward with. And I would say that the one point, Alan, I would disagree is that I believe that the 35 to 40 kBTU per square foot per year is within line of our hybrid system, and just through the nature of how it all came together, the design has morphed from the SD in the sense that our understanding of what we estimate the energy load to be and how we address that with our geothermal system, we think we can be in that range with the hybrid system and not require the full geo. So
Thank
the
you.
full geo we think will make it even better, but we think we're there with the hybrid.
Thank you. Okay, good. Alan, yeah, it's just not the way we're going to do things because people can't hear you and everything. If you want to hop back up at the end and ask that question, I'm fine with that. Thanks. Malia?
Good evening. I'm Malia Lewis. The only comment I really want to make is concerning building as a teaching tool and career in tech ed. We don't currently have an engineering teacher. When you start looking for that person, get those two things to talk to each other, because that would be a very, very good course. I mean, I would come back and take it. It would be great. Thank you.
Thank you. Joan?
Hi, I'm Joan Spurl. A few things. One is, Laura's report, I appreciate we need to have balance, and it's hard to balance everything. But a lot of us in the sustainability community are somewhat disappointed with the outcome. I wanted to make the point, too, when I was getting ready for the interview for the video, too, because one of the questions it was about LEED. I was doing more research on LEED, and LEED was developed in 1994, and it is now very commonplace. So I know you're all thrilled for us to get LEED silver and gold, but we're required by the state to get LEED silver to get reimbursed. And it's very commonplace and now considered sort of a mediocre standard. It's not out of the ballpark. Laura shed some great light in a smaller meeting with us that was very helpful. That makes me try to be less disheartened, and some of us are tired, and we have been disheartened by the process, because while we've been, you said that we've been engaged in this as volunteers, we've kind of imposed ourselves on the process post pre-planning, like in the last couple of years, before the bond issue passed. We were welcomed and engaged then, but after that, it feels like we've sort of imposed ourselves on you. But I hope that we can build our energy back up, that we can start anew to make the most and the best of this. I think in telling the story, you've got to promote a lot of this on your website. You should be letting people know that you have a green cleaning program going on. You should be educating your staff, the teachers, the students about this, about why you're doing that, so that they can take that home. I know in a lot of the buildings, you're not going to have clean air if teachers are doing what they're doing now, and that is plugging in Glade air fresheners into the wall and spraying Febreze in all over the place. And I know that that's going on for a fact. Those are toxic chemicals in those products and can contribute to asthma problems. So yes, Nancy, I'm so glad to have heard you say, and very heartened to hear you say that we have got to work on the behavior in the next 2 years, and that you can start at Wiley. To hear you say that is a really good and powerful, hopefully powerful statement, and way for the future. And again, signage through the building. Laura said that there's going to be good signage. I think I would love to see the Sustainability Working Group and others in the community engaged in deciding, talking about what that signage should be, so that, again, we can be using it, educating students about all of these things and the behaviors through, about all the features in the school. They can be learning every day by seeing the signs. everywhere about different things. And then Laura, you talked about that the community lead hasn't happened for the setting goals to reduce energy use. Is that for fundraising or like trying to apply for grants, or what did you mean by that?
That was specifically about the notion of being a energy producer.
Energy producer.
And using off-site renewable energy on the facility, and just knowing what I know from where it came on this, the sticky notes from the Eco Charrette, it was around the idea that the Cedar Lee area would become an energy producer that the school could buy from, and that sort of notion back and forth. And that's a big conversation that the district, that the community needs to be involved or take leadership on.
Lastly, Dr. Dixon, I wrote to you and Angie. It was shortly after attending the funeral of David Wright, a friend and colleague from the Nature Center at Shaker Lakes, who was involved in helping that Garrity project happen that Joe talked about. And I felt like I wanted to continue his legacy and do something, I just felt like I needed to do something. And so I proposed having a coffee clutch with various community members and organizations in the area that are engaged in sustainability. And I would still like to do that because I think there's lots of partnerships that are possible right now to help you all not have to reinvent the wheel when it comes to fostering those behavior changes. And I think we need to optimize those partnerships to get that to happen. And I just think it would be great to get everyone together. So thank you.
Thank you. Susan?
What was my name?
You're famous.
Hi, I'm Susan Miller. So I've been following another issue for our community more closely and spending my research hours on that, and that's water. And I want to just echo what Alan said about water. I learned about this at the 2010 U.S. Social Forum when I met in workshops with the Council of Canadians and Maud Barlow and the people who are really doing the global work on water. And I brought it back to Cleveland, and I said to my friend and council person who sits on the Utilities Committee in the city of Cleveland, Brian Cummins, I said, Brian, don't privatize our water, because I see what happens when water gets privatized worldwide. And we don't think of ourselves as a third world country, but if you read the news today, you'll see that we are Greece. We are Greece. We Americans don't like to think of ourselves as dealing with austerity measures in the way that we read about them in the newspapers being inflicted on the people of Greece. And we certainly don't want to think about them in a forum where we're just about to spend, millions of dollars making a wonderful, shiny sustainability teaching tool. But it is a reality. And we don't set the water rate. It's not a regional water department, no matter how many times Jason Stein says it, it isn't. Frank Jackson sets the rate. And we have an algae problem in Lake Erie, which is the source of our water. The more algae, the harder it is to make it potable. What makes the water potable? Energy. So there's a little bit more than a triple bottom line or a triple bottom deficit when you start to think about using that rainwater, that stormwater, for any purpose whatsoever. So I just wanted to encourage the school to take advantage of whatever water falls on the property, because so far our governor has not outlawed reusing rainwater. And in some states, that is illegal. So you can grab it now, or you can put it off until some Republican governor passes a law that we can't have rain barrels anymore. I have a couple questions. I wanted to ask, one, if you're here and you're a member of the Bond Accountability Committee, Facilities Account, I can't remember what you ended up calling it.
Facilities Accountability Committee.
Thank you. Raise your hand, please. 2. And how many people are on that committee?
About 15.
Wow. What a show, guys.
Well, they have a meeting Thursday night, and these gentlemen report on it, I will say.
Thank you.
Actually, there's 9 citizens, I
Yeah.
think there's 9 or 10 citizens, and then there's representatives.
From each city.
3 from the 3 city councils, and then 2 members of the Board of Ed, so it's really 9.
9. Okay. And the other question I had, and maybe Ms. Steinbrink can address this question, and that's about the deficit we begin with, the demolition deficit. So when you are trying to achieve LEED, whatever color of metal you think it is, you have a system of numbers, right? You have measurements, right? And is there a measurement for the embodied energy that we have wasted to begin? Because we begin with the deficit. Do we take that into account in this math problem?
If I understand your question, it's does the LEED certification process award or penalize for demolition of existing building to build new? So it rewards the saving of existing building, and it has metrics that you do in 2 areas. One is the exterior walls, foundations, roof, and floor plates, and the other is the interior walls, floors, and the like. And so this project will not, based on the demolition plans, qualify for either of those 2 credit points.
Can you say that in layperson language, please, for the people who are watching this on television?
Just got another minute on you.
LEED certification has 2 optional credit points. One about building reuse interior, building reuse exterior, 2 big buckets. And based on calculations and metrics that you achieve of different percentages saved of interior or exterior, you can earn the credit points in those categories. And
But we didn't earn any.
no.
Right. Thank you. Joe?
Hi, I'm Joe Mendes, 4th grade teacher. You saw me in that video, and I liked what you said, Cal, from the start, because when the interviewer asked me, what's sustainability? I said, well, it depends on your definition, and you can take this a lot of different ways. And it was interesting, just as you said, the kids could lead us. Those students were not prepped, they had no notes, and they were just asked, what's sustainability? Now, they had taken a course for 4 days this winter in Cuyahoga Valley National Park, but they knew what they were talking about. And I mean, even to technical aspects like the sun tubes, whatever. So your point is well taken. And that's without a lot of teaching or a lot of emphasis. I shared Nancy's concern. My first point is about the culture in the buildings. And when I was looking at your analysis with the boxes that were checked, I was also wondering, how do we know that's happening? How do we know that's in progress or not? And so that was a concern, because I've lived in this, I'm a community member, and I've worked in the schools for 15 years, and most of the sustainable practices that I've seen are not implemented, even if it's recycling, or actually we had a really good cafeteria one in the last 3 years, and we've been composting, and the kids do it, and they took it out every day. But it, just like you say, it's a people, it's a cultural, behavioral thing that once you get all these elements in place, is it going to happen? So that was my first concern. So the second one goes right along with that. I liked what Steve Warner was saying in the movie, and you can tell how passionate he is and smart. And you need, I think this is what I'm going to encourage the board and superintendent to think about, creating positions of people, if we think the culture is so important in the building, creating a position where people, where a teacher or 2 are are in charge of sustainability. How do you use the school as a teaching tool? How do you invite people to use these, what the word is, the stuff? How do you invite them to use the stuff? For example, the district has very graciously invested a lot of money in Garrity, where we're working this summer, and we're employing about 12 Heights kids, high school kids, to work at the site. Here's my concern. We're going to have a 40 by 60 hoop house. We have a beautiful garden. We've been building, we got trails, we have composting, we're investigating water systems. Now the school year, we're going to have a Cobb pizza oven. It's quite nice. Now the school year starts. Who's taking care of this? That is undetermined. And it gets into the staffing issue again. If we spend $130 million on a school, we spend $30,000 on a garden at Garrity. Okay, who's going to take care of it? I have to teach reading. I can't take care of it. So that's just, I think, a very important piece of this to put into a plan.
Thank you. Alan?
Alan Wilkins again. Before I follow up, building as a teaching tool is a passion for me, and we aren't even close to our potential of what we could do with a building. And we've tried very hard to again provide concrete and affordable ways to get it done. And it's like sustainability. The inside staff doesn't really understand it. And so they don't know how to implement it. And until there is a will or a direction to implement it, it's going to be haphazard and probably a failure. And it's going to be resources down the drain if you don't really think about it. Okay. And there's the expertise to think about it. Okay, beyond that, is the question about, has the EUI for the building changed since last November? The hybrid system in end of September, early October was 63,000 BTUs per square foot per year. Has the EUIs changed? Okay, to what number? It's really important to what number. We've been asking that number for months and not getting it.
Mike, I apologize. Please do that, because this is a perfect example of what we need to make sure these conversations are documented and are shared with folks who are watching. Thank you. Yeah. So go ahead and answer that, Evan.
Yeah, Alan, what I think is important to understand is when we have very preliminary design documents to work off of, we have to take broad strokes at coming up with those estimates. So,
understand. So what's the new number? I mean, I've been asking for the new number for 6 months.
Answer, please.
Okay.
The short answer is we still don't have a final number, and we will not have a final number until the design is complete. There's a lot of calculations still to be done. We're a lot further along in the process because now we actually have real building loads, okay, which we did not have back in September, October. So we're able to estimate a lot closer for the purposes of this presentation, but we're not going to commit to a number at this time until the design is done. And we hope to beat the numbers on the screen, but we're not going to commit to that until we go through all the calculations, because there's still work to be done, and we have a deadline coming up, and so
how often do you run those calculations?
It's not a matter of running them over and over. It's a matter of fine-tuning all the
change parameters.
Right. So to not get stuck in the weeds, there's a lot of controls that we add onto the operation of the equipment.
Okay. Yeah.
And as we fine-tune it, we're able to wring out extra energy.
Understand that.
And that's where you go from mediocre to exceptional is how you can fine-tune all those controls. And that's where we don't have an answer yet.
Okay.
Just one more, please.
I guess this is a part of the frustration for the SWG, is that if we could see a progression of numbers, knowing that they're not the final number, that would be a huge positive value in this engagement process.
But Alan, I'm going to challenge you on that. You knew that the estimates last fall were not final numbers, and you challenged what was,
Okay,
I
yeah.
understand, but you just challenged what was presented tonight and said, how did those change? And you knew last fall that those were not final numbers because we hadn't even gotten deep into the design process.
All I can work with is what you give to the public.
Right.
And that's all you're giving to the public.
But-
And you probably have new numbers. Share them. There's a simple task to share them.
But Alan, the
Can't.
opportunity cost, if every single time you need something for your particular
No, I'm not-
level of, excuse me,
Okay.
or your particular level of interest, it means you're taking them away from other work. Let them get their work done, and they'll give you the numbers when they have them.
Look, they're running that model, right? You run it more than, how many times have you run it since
Alan,
October?
the model out of the box can't do a hybrid geo design. We have to do custom calculations to get that, to get the
Okay,
answer.
how often
So
do you run it?
we haven't finished it. We haven't finished running it the first time, all the way through, because the calculations are custom. They don't.
I understand there's lots
The
of-
software out of the box cannot do what we're doing with this building. This is pretty advanced stuff. We're very proud of our work, but we're not done. And for us to keep giving you numbers
understand.
would probably be dishonest because they wouldn't be accurate.
Well, I'm not asking for you to ever do extra work. I'm only asking to know the information that you already have in hand, and that's the part that feels like it doesn't come.
Thank
But-
you. Jody?
Hi, I'm Jody Taslitz. I was delighted to see that you're going to work on reducing food waste. I'm aware that Huron Hospital composted all of their food waste, so it can be done. I'm also aware that the meditation group that I'm part of had a national gathering, and we sent 116 bags of compostable waste to a farm out near Oberlin to be used. So these things can be done. It may take people for a while standing by bins and telling students, that goes there, that goes there, this goes here. But it can be done, and if you have students who are interested in this area, that might be a volunteer place for some of them. So thank you.
Thank you. Does anyone else want to make any comments? Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. All right, we're going to move on to business services. We have 4 items that we need to take, and these need to be taken separately. Could I have a motion to approve item E1?
So moved.
Second.
Any questions or comments, gentlemen? George, are you prepared if anyone has any questions? Okay, just, none? Okay, can I, Mr. Gaynor?
Mr. Register?
Yes.
Mr. Silverman?
Yes.
Mr. Zucker?
Yes.
Ms. Pepler?
Yes. Okay, motion please to accept item, approve item E2.
So moved.
Second.
Nothing, that's a real simple one. Okay, Mr. Gaynor?
Mr. Silverman?
Yes.
Mr. Zucker?
Yes.
Ms. Pepler?
Yes.
Mr. Register?
Yes.
Okay, item E3, the resolution for the execution of the lease agreement between the school district and the city.
So moved.
Second.
Are you able to speak to where we are on all of our fund leases for our, I have to use the word diaspora?
All of the leases?
Yes. Are we 100% done? Are we 90? Where are we? Please tell me not like 10%. I know that.
We are approximately 90%
Okay.
done. There's a couple more that have to have some loose ends tied up, but we're almost there.
So we're
Right. Confident we'll be there.
we'll all before Kristen leaves.
Oh, definitely.
Okay.
Anyone else? Mr. Gaynor?
Mr. Zucker?
Yes.
Ms. Pepler?
Yes.
Mr. Register?
Yes.
Mr. Silverman?
Yes.
And finally, item E4, a recommendation to approve the lease agreement between the board and the city for parking.
So moved.
Second.
Any questions or comments on that one? Mr. Gaynor?
Ms. Pepler?
Yes.
Mr. Register?
Yes.
Mr. Silverman?
Yes.
Mr. Zucker?
Yes.
And finally, can I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Absolutely.
So moved, and I think that was a second.
We'll take that as a second.
Okay, and we're going to get you out in time to get home for the game at 9. Mr. Gaynor?
Ms. Pepper?
Yes.
Mr. Register?
Yes.
Mr. Silverman?
Yes.
Mr. Zucker?
Yes.